I touch it?
Mhm.
It's blocking my view. All right, so we're going to move on now to Jonah 2. And when I put this together, I didn't think about the fact that I had vacation. So y'all are just going to have to pretend for 2 weeks that Jonah's still in the whale. Okay? So just think about that for 2 weeks. But, just to recap, last week we talked about Jonah being unavailable. So Jonah is called by God to go and talk to the Ninevites, and he doesn't want to, and so he tries his hardest to make himself unavailable, and he gets in a ship and heads away from Nineveh. And so, that's kind of where we were. Then the sailors all are aware that something's going on, and they're praying to their gods, and they're throwing stuff overboard, and they're rowing really hard to try to get out of the storm that has come up. And Jonah is fast asleep. And finally, the captain wakes Jonah up and says, "How can you sleep? Get up, pray to your God." And he confesses, "This is all because of me." And finally, he tells them, throw him overboard. He's kind of lost his purpose in life, throw him overboard. And they don't want to. They don't want to throw him overboard. But eventually, they do. And that's where we pick up today. They throw him overboard, and remember, something comes, and a whale, shark, fish, whatever you want to call it, something comes and eats him, so to speak. Jonah 2. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, "I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your side. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? The water closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit. O Lord my God, as my life was ebbing away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake their true loyalty. But I, with a voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Deliverance belongs to the Lord." Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah up onto dry land. But for you guys, not for 2 weeks. Okay? Not for 2 weeks. All right, so I want us to imagine ourselves as Jonah for a few minutes. Okay? You have tried to make yourself unavailable to God. You have discovered that exhausts you to the point where you can sleep through this incredibly raging storm. It doesn't give you the peace that you hope for. It's kind of tearing you apart. So much so, you recognize you're losing your relationship with God, and so you're losing your purpose in life, and you're just really down and out, to the point where you tell people, just throw me overboard. Now, that was a death sentence, right? Throw me overboard. And finally, that happens. They throw you overboard. Notice he didn't throw himself overboard. He had to get them to throw him overboard. So he's now in the water, which immediately goes calm. Now, isn't that kind of bizarre? When you get thrown into this raging sea and it suddenly goes calm, and you're probably like, "Oh, can you come back now? Can you go ahead and come back and pick me up?" But apparently the sailors were like, "That was no coincidence. Sorry, dude, we're out of here." And they left him. Imagine being in that water, watching that boat sail away. Man, that would hurt. I mean, he's already kind of torn up, and he's watching that boat sail away, and he must have just felt so alone. Just so alone and lost. And then, I mean, I'm sure he's thankful the water's flat, but he's still probably thinking, I'm going to die out here. I can't even see land. You know, I don't think I could swim that far. But then you see a fin. I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't have been thinking happy thoughts. One of my greatest fears, by the way. We actually got to see a shark in the water once. We were in Florida on our honeymoon, and we were chasing little fish to take home to put in our aquarium. And I went under this little piece of fiberglass, and there was a shark. And of course I swam backwards. Don't know how I did it, but I did it. Swam backwards and immediately got out of the water and found him. He was snorkeling, you know, I don't know if I yelled at him or threw things at him or whatever it was, pulled him up by the hair anyway. You know, told him, you gotta get out of the water, there's a shark. He's like, there's no shark in here. This is shallow water. I'm like, there's a shark in here. And I could tell he didn't believe me, so I, fine, get in the water with me and I'm gonna show you that shark. So I did. But anyway, but let's go back to Jonah. Okay? He's already probably thinking, this isn't gonna end well. And then he sees the fin. Whether it was a grouper or a shark or a whale. Once it opens its mouth, it didn't matter what it was anymore. Okay? It opens its mouth and is coming at you. I'm sure he's thinking, oh my gosh, it couldn't have gotten any worse. Couldn't. Couldn't have possibly gotten any worse. And then surprisingly, it closes its mouth on him, and he is still in one piece. Can you imagine how weird that would be? It's like, great, I'm going to be slowly digested. You know? I mean, things are just going from bad to worse, right? Just bad to worse. And can you imagine what it must have smelled like in there? You know, besides the digestive juices, you know, there's probably little bits of meat left on the teeth, and they're rotting, and they stink, and, you know, I mean, you're in the beginning of somebody's gut, you know? It's dark. So, just even reading his prayer, I get this idea that he was hitting really rock bottom. I mean, this one spot, for some reason, just really stuck out to me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountains. Think about, you know, you're struggling in the water and you get all wrapped up in a rope, or you get wrapped up in weeds, and the panic you must feel. So he is just in such a terrible spot, such a terrible place. He's talking about his life ebbing away. So he must have been thinking a lot, thinking about what he's done. What is he going to do next? And somewhere in that thinking, of course, he finally gets to God. But there's something I really want to point out that's kind of interesting. I can't remember if I put the slides on there or not. Are there any other slides? Yeah. I did. Okay. In Jewish literature, I've mentioned this before, numbers actually mean something. Okay? And it's very interesting. I wanted to share with you numbers 1, 2, and 3. The number 1 symbolizes peace. That peace is achieved because you're alone. Okay? I mean, I hate to say it, but if you're by yourself, it's kind of hard to have an argument. I mean, you can do it, but it is kind of hard. So, that's what 1 symbolizes. Okay, 2 symbolizes complexity, tension, argument. Okay? Duality. So what happens when you add somebody to the mix? Right? You have problems. No matter how much you're in love with each other, no matter how much you're soulmate, as soon as you add a second person, you add complexity. Okay? Number 3 actually symbolizes a harmony that includes both 1 and 2. Okay? That means you are still totally you, but now you have found harmony with the opposite, number 2. Does that make sense? Does that mean, I know it's hard to explain, but number 1 is me. I'm an individual. Of course, I'm at peace with myself, theoretically. But as soon as you add a second person, I have to change some, right, to be in relationship with somebody else. But in Jewish culture, 3 symbolizes the fact that you can be in relationship with somebody, and what the 2 of you are together is still you, and all you are meant to be individually, but now in harmony with your opposite. Okay? How many days was Jonah in the whale? How many days was Jonah in the whale? 3? 3 days. Ooh, I wonder what that's telling us. So he's down here, he's been through, he feels like he's going to die. He's been through all this tough stuff. All this stuff's going on around him. Things have gone from bad to worse. But he begins to wrestle with God in prayer. He begins to spend some time talking to God. And just sharing probably everything he was feeling, why he ran. I mean, he's just laying it all out to God. Being honest. And God comes in and restores him. 3 days. Symbolism here. 3 days. He restores him. He's still all Jonah, but he's now in harmony with God. So he had to spend 3 days in the well to restore that harmony with God. Now, I don't know about any of you guys, but there have been times in my life where I have found myself not in harmony with God and wrestling with God. And I just want y'all to know we're all in good company, because Jonah isn't the only one in Scripture that wrestles with God. It is something that happens. But here's the wonderful thing about this. God could have let Jonah stay out on the water. Could have done so many different things. But he chooses instead to let Jonah go to the deepest, darkest place. I don't know about any of you guys, but sometimes I feel like I am praying and praying for God to help me, and things only get worse. And I can't understand why. Because sometimes we need to get to that spot. Sometimes we need to get all the way to the bottom before we really get it. Before we're ready to be in harmony with God. So it's part of the lesson here. Now in Wesleyan terms, John Wesley, by the way, founder of Methodism, John Wesley had these, what he called prevenient grace, sanctifying grace, and, oh my gosh, what's the other one? I'm going blank. See, my vacation has already started. I only have, what, 14 minutes left. So anyway, there's 3 of them. Oh, saving grace and then sanctifying grace. There you go. Prevenient grace, that's the grace that goes before. Okay? That's the grace that is always drawing you to God. Before you even know of God, God is calling you. Okay? And then there's the saving grace. It's when you finally recognize that God's at work in your life and you go down and you say to God, I want you to be my Lord. And then sanctifying grace is that process where we're always being worked on. But what I want to add to John Wesley's thoughts here is a fourth grace. And that's restoring grace. Not really a thing we call it sanctifying grace, but restoring grace. Because God reached out to Jonah and said, I still want to have a relationship with you. I don't care that you fled from me. I don't care that you said, God, I don't want to do it. I don't care that you got so low and so depressed that you're willing to just be thrown overboard and die. I want to have a relationship with you. I still want to be in three with you, right? I still want a relationship. That's the beautiful thing about God. Folks, we can't do anything that's so bad that God doesn't want to restore our relationship. There's nothing we can do. God is always seeking to restore relationships. So that's part of what I was thinking of. I was thinking about Jonah because I'm going to cheat and give you a little of the end of Jonah. But Jonah's still a bad dude. He didn't learn all of his lesson. He still doesn't want to go to Nineveh. He still doesn't want the Ninevites to be saved by God. As a matter of fact, it makes him mad that God decides to save him. So Jonah's still Jonah. But he's in a relationship with God. So sometimes God is willing to work with us just like we are. He's always moving us. We know that. But I think the important thing is to remember that God wants that relationship even when we're still all broken, not perfect. I mean, some of us have hit perfection. So not. God still desires a relationship. And I think it's hard for us sometimes too, as people, and we're going to talk about this actually in 4 weeks, because I'll be gone too, and then I'll come back. And the second one after that, we're going to talk about sometimes the fact that we meet people and we think there is no way they're in a relationship with God. Sorry, I don't see it. Like, that's not true. Because God does want that relationship with us. Even when we say no. Even when we're not finished. And that's where Jonah is. He's definitely not finished yet. But God's not finished with him. And God is never at a point where he says, I'm finished with you. It never happens. God is always, always desiring to restore relationships. Always willing to say, please come home. All right, as our musicians come.